Thank you everyone for coming. I know that we've all had a long couple days here and we're drawing toward the end of the experience, so we're hoping to punctuate it with a fun presentation. As you might have seen, we're trying to present the story of DevSecOps, data science, and the use of Databricks Delta with some of our customers in the federal space, highly regulated environments, through this visual story of adding and what you'll see some deleting of code to actually eventually solve the problems. We've gathered a team here over the course of the past couple days who have been instrumental in our partnership with Databricks. We've been working with Databricks in a capacity enabling in the federal government for a year plus now, and formally have really focused down on a number of accounts and some capabilities around our ability to bring them on premise, but also continue to support fully cloud native environments. Some of the announcements around Delta Lake and MLflow over the past couple days are really exciting to this partnership. And earlier in the week, we were actually privileged enough to be awarded the Industry Partner of the Year. So what you're going to see today from Alicia and Steven is representative of one of the types of engagements that we've been working with Databricks to help kind of prove out this partnership and continue to help the adoption of this technology and some of the AI capabilities that the federal government is really looking to get into. Quick introduction on these two behind me. Steven is a solutions architect who's part of our digital team within the firm here. He has a passion for everything digital, whether it's some of the solutioning that he's going to talk about here in the DevSecOps type of realm, the immersive technology realm, serious games, fun games, etc. As you see from his picture, he's quite a character, and you'll probably get some of that through the talk here. And Alicia, who was one of our data science leads on the project that we're going to be talking about, has been at the firm for a little bit over a year and was instrumental in bringing some of our analytic capabilities to bear and help solution with the customer here. So I'm going to turn it over to them to take you through the presentation. Thanks again for coming, and we'll be having some questions and answers at the end of the talk.
Thanks, Alex. Like Alex has said, that we were on client site, so I was brought in, and we were tasked to conduct analysis on a major IT system. It's been a top DHS investment, and we wanted to provide insights about the IT investment, such as return on investment, identifying bottlenecks in the system, resource constraints, and help them make better decisions using data. So the main goal was to provide a dashboard of KPPs and provide their leadership with insights into their organization. Some requirements for this dashboard was that it had to adhere to some DevOps standards and provide quick and automated analysis. And there was different levels of aggregation, such as monthly, quarterly, fiscal, yearly, and then we eventually go into weekly, like later on as well. We also had to follow modern software development and DevSecOps best practices and report metrics using the production database, and it had to be cloud hosted as well. So just to set the scene of where we came into. So before Databricks, we manually pulled data from the Oracle database, and it was in CSV files, and then we put it onto our local computer, did stuff in R, and then put it onto our Shiny dashboard. So this was a quick and easy way for us to dive into the data and just really display it and show the client these different options that we had seen or things that we had seen in the data. But other things that was kind of bad about this was that it was limited to our local machine, and we were relying on manual data and the computer RAM limitations as well.
So this is my first day at work. So I come in and I ask, what is the architecture for this solution? Because the customer had come up with ways to actually try to invent Databricks by themselves through 3 very excellent, I'm sure, microservices written in Java. Okay. What they were really after is this service here on the far end, where they wanted an Angular dashboard, and you can see that's not even circled. So the difficulty here is that, as Alicia said, the way we were solving the problem, Databricks hadn't been introduced yet. And as soon as they introduced Databricks, it threw the whole organization into chaos, because now they had a new way to solve the problem, but they were headed down this path. So to make it a little cleaner for you, there's a nicer diagram that was on the board. And the bottom diagram is really what we wanted to get to, or what was happening. And everything that we were doing, or that Alicia was doing in the notebooks, someone else had decided, let's do that over in Java, in the other side. And so what happens is a man with 2 watches never knows what time it is. And the way we would debug this application is Alicia would print out the results of Databricks and say, did you get this result? And they, no, I didn't. And then they would start to change the Java. And then the customer would come and say, well, we want to calculate the KPP a little different, or the KPI, right? We want to calculate it a little different. And so Alicia would say, how about this result, right? And again, they'd have to change the problem. So the real stress here is that doing all the DevSecOps and all the traditional stuff of you building code, it was just incompatible with the work that Databricks was doing, right? So we found ourselves in this.
Yeah. So also on this, so while the dev team was building out these 3 microservices, we had already done all of the analysis in Databricks, already printed out, and the way we were doing it is through just printing it out and putting on PowerPoints to disseminate the data. So we already had everything set up, all the tables were already done, but so now.
So this was, we had to have the courage to change the wheels on the car while we were going forward, right, without getting run over by the giant ball. So we had to come up with a strategy to show progress for the customer and also remove a lot of the code that was just being a problem that Databricks actually replaced, right? So we came up with this simpler architecture to explain what was going on. Our plan here was initially to say, let's have what we called our Databricks connector, this Spring Boot application that would drive Angular through a RESTful interface. And we felt, hey, if we could build a nice generic RESTful interface that would just be smart, that we could ask for what tables we needed to display and just render it, then we could have a real simple solution to do that.
Right. And so this is kind of one of our work products that the data science team had. So basically a table with time series data, and we pass this over in CSV to the dev team. And yeah.
Right. So this is where the talk gets a little crazy. Okay. So what happens? We use these lights to kind of explain to the customer what's going on. Because look, if you walk by a room of developers, they're all sitting with their backs towards you on the computers working hard. And you're building beautiful stuff, but the customer who's really trying to understand how their business is working doesn't see the value you're getting yet. So we used this kind of diagram to help them understand, because they can all understand blinky lights, right? So what we actually did is Alicia gave us the tables, and we then converted them into JSON format, and we just shoved them right into Angular. I don't know if there are any Angular developers or front-end developers in there, but we pretended that the data came through that whole big process, and this is where it arrived. Now, what's neat about this application is that it only, at that time, it only got updated once a month, right? So now just think what we did. By putting the results into the final application and not actually taking the time to set up the pipeline, we bought ourselves a month's worth of time, right? And what was great is we shoved all the KPIs over. This is a blanked out version of the rendering, but you can imagine there's wonderful charts and graphs there. But now, look what happened to the customer. The customer was now focused on what the data was talking about and not the whole process of the DevOps. And so the conversation started to change and things started to look like success, or things were becoming to be successful, right? So we actually had that initial success, and then I remember walking back from the customer's place. I get a phone call from the people at Databricks. They said, hey, you were up on our website. Do you want to buy Databricks? And I said, well, I already own it, but I'd like to talk to your rep. So this is our rep. She came in, and I said, look, we're trying to solve this problem. We really want to use Databricks effectively here. We want to throw away all that Java code. Can you help me out? So we met at a Starbucks, and she mentioned that Starbucks used Databricks, and I said, okay, good enough for me. But then I said, look, I need to talk with someone who can help me understand how I'd be able to connect this with this JDBC connector, because I heard that this kind of thing can happen. And I said, I want to meet with one of your experts, but I don't want a architecture discussion. I don't want slides. I want to be there with the guy, and we'll just hammer out how the whole things fit together. And she said, fine, I got the right guy. And we had a meeting, and in about an hour, I had convinced myself that we were going to be successful with the undertaking we went on forward. And this picture was actually taken when she came in to talk to the larger group and said, here's what Databricks can do for you, and this is what we're doing. And we actually did our implementation then. So if we go back to the diagram here, Databricks is really this engine, this CPU thing that's calculating over here on the side, and we hook that up to our database. So this is not to scale, but this is what you can see is that's where the KPIs were actually calculated. So we were able to actually generate and do that. And as we move forward on our design, right, and this is now the customer can say, oh, I know what you're doing. You're going to connect Databricks to the Angular application. And I said, yeah, and the typical way you connect this stuff together is with Swagger UI. So I don't know if anybody's worked with microservices or anything like this, but this is a very popular way to have a self-describing set of APIs that deliver the data in a Swagger, in a JSON kind of format. If you look at the very first one there, it just says, the best one there is number 3, get tables, okay? So there's actually an API that you call, and it goes and queries Databricks and says, what are all the tables I know about, right? And then from there, you can continue to ask these other things to actually extract the tables away, right? So in that case, we used, once we had this API together, then we just basically connected the two together, and we got the result you expected, which is this. Okay. So we're going to take it on from there.
Yeah, so Steve called me over. He's like, what's going on? Why does this data look so weird? It's supposed to be like a line chart. And we realized that it wasn't sorting automatically on whatever field that we wanted to. So with our tables, we added a sort key so that every time we had a table in Databricks, it could just automatically sort by the sort key, and they didn't have to change the code at all. And so if you wanted a table by fiscal year, weekly, daily, you just use sort key, and it would automatically sort in the front end. We do have like a picture of a line chart, but because of data, we can't show it. But there's supposed to be a picture of just a line chart.
It's beautiful.
It's great.
It's really great. It's really good.
Yeah, so.
So that whole process took about a month to do. Right, a month, 6 weeks. So we were able to, they never knew that it wasn't connected up, and we got it all together, and we got this great letter of support from our customer. Redaction is popular these days. So, with that, did you want to?
Yeah. So in Databricks, we were able to basically create these.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into the details,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the happy ending there, and yeah.
Right.
So, did you want to say any more about the partnership?
Yeah, I think that story right there is sort of representative of our approach as an SI working with Databricks in our customers' environments to not only take the sort of stated requirements of the delivery work, but also start looking beyond what technology they have available, bring in new capabilities, develop some engineering solutions around the out-of-the-box offerings of something like Databricks to create a lasting impact. And what they're about to get into here is sort of the next phase. So they've solved the initial problem. They had that month lead time that they gave themselves to develop the connector to that front end in Angular. And now they're going to talk a little bit more about, so what? How do we make this persist? How do we make the impact last?
So we'll go next. Let me set this up. So in a lot of our environments that we're working in, it's not just the data flies right into production, right? We are engineering and working through the customer as to what it is we want to measure, and there's many iterations on these books on how to do it. And what you don't want to have happen is, because of our API, we don't want to change the table and then all of a sudden everybody in production is broken or they don't see the right data. So there's this philosophy inside of DevSecOps to say, you build multiple environments and then you associate a branch of code with each environment, and as you release it, it moves into the next environment and quality just improves. But there wasn't a similar concept in Databricks. So we introduced that ourselves as we move forward to then control that process. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so as you can see, we have these 3 different environments here, the development test, performance testing, and prod. So the development testing is when we create these views that we think that the client wants to see, and we'll display it in our Angular dashboard in DT and say, hey, does this look good? Do you not like it? How do you want it sorted? And things like that. So that's when we kind of iterate and we change it up, and then once it gets approved, we go to performance testing and then prod. So as we're iterating and going through these processes, we're not messing up prod, and the prod environment gets sent to everyone on the floor, and everyone gets to see these metrics. But before that, there's all this development and iterations that we're going through with the client.
Right. Yeah. So then we got really meta on it. If we go to the next slide. So we actually built a table of tables in Databricks. And so this table says which, this one's specially encoded so you can't read it, but this table basically says use this table in development to create this chart. Use this table in prod to create this chart, right? And now the data scientists could control the entire shape of what's being deployed, because what I've learned over time is the fewer developers you have in the way between the data scientist and the customer, the better off you are. So we wanted to make this completely under their own control, right? So what's nice about that table of tables, remember I talked about the connector. What the connector does is it uses that information plus the JDBC, and it then returns all of the possible, all of the tables that Alicia says she wants to be in the dashboard. And they all have special keys on them, so they get associated with the grids that are showing up in the dashboard, or the charts, or the pie charts, or whatever we want to draw. And what's nice about the URLs is the URLs change as the application progresses through the environment. And so there's nothing really hard-coded in the client. The client is as dumb as we could possibly make it, and therefore made it as flexible as it possibly could be, right? So that was the purpose of that design, right? So this is the Angular side. I don't know if any Angular developers, but in the case here, this just goes and gets the set of tables and loads them into the environment on the client side, so that any part of the Angular application can say, well, I want this table, please give it to me. This is not the table being cached, but this is the pointer to the table being cached, that goes back into our service, right? So that's the full set of code there. This is the set of code that actually calls the service, and it looks up based on that URL and that lookup there at the top. It then gets the right data, maps the payload out, and either throws an error or you have a success. And again, that's all the code that was required for every table that's in the system that we were rendering. The next slide. This is one of the Angular features of using observables. And this line called replace subject, that basically was a mechanism that, rather than if the dashboard needed the data in 3 separate places, it only got it once, and then the next 2 or 3 times it needed it, it just got it out of that replay buffer inside the local client. So again, the dashboard would come up faster, and the dashboard would come up on demand. And the reason we added that was because for 508 compliance, we needed to sometimes create a graph and then create a table next to it. And what you didn't want is the client going off and getting that data twice and slowing things down. So there's some optimizations we built along the way. And through those optimizations, things just got simpler, not more complex. So.
Yeah, so hopefully as time goes on, we'll be able to mature our clients' data and give more insights using especially this new Delta Lake and being able to make it stable, and MLflow and Tableau as well, using it on client side. But,
right. So with that, if there's any questions.
I have a mic over here so you can come up and ask questions. Or I can come to you as well.
It's been a long couple days, so.
So if you don't mind me asking this way, DevSecOps, which means like development security ops or something like that?
Right.
I've never heard that term before this session. Is it in fact,
there's
a whole body of practice in federal systems and so on for this?
It's a popular term in the federal space, and what they're primarily worried about is that as we're building containers, because this entire application was running on OpenShift, right? Okay. That you are building security in every phase of the development process. So are you getting an image that is clean, right? So is the image actually built and they're all scanned before you use them? Then when you actually build a piece of code, are all the dependencies checked as they're being built? Then you run them through all sorts of aspects of the pipeline as to whether are there vulnerabilities inside the code you wrote? Is your code, optimal to do a certain set of things? And finally, when it gets all packaged, right, then you know that it's secure and it's labeled. And then from then on, you just promote the container. You don't rebuild things, right? And as soon as somebody makes a change, well, then you just go down the pipeline again, right? But you never try to fix some pre-built artifact. You always rebuild. So in that way, it's actually a lot like machine learning models,
You can raise your hand so I can go up to you. Well, do you?
Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show.
Kristen O'Donnell. I am the Databricks rep for Department of Homeland Security and a couple other accounts in the federal government. And I would just like to say that thank you guys to Booz Allen for your amazing delivery at USCIS and a couple other clients. The partnership has really made Databricks a commodity across DHS and a couple other strategic accounts in federal, and we just really appreciate it. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you do have any questions, they'll be around for a little bit. Please give them a huge round of applause.
Thank you.